"She's been asking for you," the night nurse said softly. "The little one in room 14. She keeps saying the lady with the braid came back." Riva Calloway paused at the nurse's station and looked down the corridor. The pediatric ward of Creston Memorial was quiet at that hour. Pale light, the faint beep of monitors, the hush that settles after midnight. She had already worked 11 hours. Her sneakers were worn at the heel. The braid the child mentioned was habit. She braided her hair each morning because it stayed out of her face and because her grandmother had taught her to, long ago in a kitchen that always smelled of cornbread. She walked to room 14 anyway. The little girl was 4 years old. Her name was Ivy. She had a stuffed rabbit with one eye missing and had been admitted 3 days ago for a respiratory infection that had taken longer to respond than anyone expected. Her father had not left the hospital in those 3 days. Riva had noticed him that first morning, a tall, composed man sitting beside his daughter's bed with his jacket across his knee and his eyes fixed on her face with the intensity of someone terrified of looking away. He thanked the nurses quietly. On the second morning, he left coffee at the station without being asked, setting it down with a small nod and no ceremony. His name was Stratton Day, 33 years old, CEO of Day Hennis Holdings, a logistics firm spanning 6 states. In room 14, none of that existed. He was simply a father, and his daughter was simply sick. Riva was 26, in her second year at Creston Memorial. She treated everyone the same, carefully, with the steady attention her patients felt, even when they couldn't name it. She stepped into the room and found Ivy awake, rabbit pressed loosely to her chest. "You came back," Ivy said. "I did," Riva said, pulling a chair close. "How are you feeling?" "My bunny's eye fell off," the little girl said seriously. "I know. I think he's very brave about it." Ivy considered this, then nodded. Stratton was asleep in the chair by the window, finally, after 3 days. Riva checked Ivy's chart, adjusted the IV rate by the smallest margin, and noted the fever had dropped another ½ degree. Small and real and earned, the way true recovery always moves. She sat with Ivy until the girl's eyes grew heavy. Before leaving, she positioned the rabbit so its remaining eye faced the door, a small gesture that made the child smile in her half-sleep. In the days that followed, Stratton noticed things. He noticed Riva always checked on Ivy in the deepest part of the night, that she remembered without being told that Ivy didn't like the overhead light and used the small lamp instead, that she spoke to the 4-year-old plainly and warmly, as though the child were fully capable of understanding the truth and deciding what she thought of it. He noticed the worn sneakers, the braid, that she ate lunch in 12 minutes because the ward was understaffed. He said nothing. He was not a man who expressed things easily. On the 5th morning, Ivy's attending physician, Dr. Camille Huff, noted that the IV adjustment Riva had made at 1:14 in the morning, a careful recalculation of fluid and medication rate, documented and initialed correctly, had preceded a sharp improvement in Ivy's fever response. It required judgment beyond routine care. That adjustment was the right call, Dr. Huff said in the morning briefing. Done at the right time. She'll go home tomorrow. Stratton was outside the room when he heard it. He stood very still. Then he walked to the window and looked out for a long time. Ivy was discharged on a Thursday morning, wearing her paper wristband like jewelry and carrying her rabbit. At the nurse's station, Stratton stopped. Riva looked up from her charting. "I want to thank you in a way that actually means something, not just something you say when you leave a hospital. Ivy did the real work. She was determined." You came for her every morning. He paused. The way you do this job matters. The way you see people matters. I don't think everyone does it the way you do. Riva was quiet for a moment. I had a grandmother who was very sick when I was small. There was one nurse who remembered personal things about her, what she liked, what frightened her. It changed everything about those months. A pause. I've been trying to be that ever since. Stratton nodded. He took Ivy's hand and walked toward the exit. Ivy waved over her shoulder. Bye, Braid Lady.
3 weeks later, an envelope arrived at the nursing office addressed to Riva Calloway, RN. Inside was a brief letter. Day Hennis Holdings had established the Calloway Huff Pediatric Nursing Endowment, an annual scholarship for pediatric nursing candidates, equipment upgrades for the ward, and a staffing relief program for chronically understaffed units. Riva read it twice, then sat down. She had never given Stratton her last name. He had paid attention, quietly, carefully, over time, and then acted on what he saw. She waited several days before calling. You didn't have to do this, she said. I know, he said. That's why I did it. A pause. My grandmother's name was Calloway, Riva said softly. She would have found this very funny, having her name on something like this. Tell me about her sometime, he said, if you want. I will, she said. 6 months later, the endowment launched at a small ceremony at Creston Memorial. Riva stood near the back and watched a presentation about the first scholarship recipients, 4 young nurses, each with a story that sounded, quietly, like a version of her own. She thought about room 14, about the rabbit with its missing eye, about an adjustment made at 1:14 in the morning, seen by no one, that had found its way back to her. Stratton stood beside her near the end of the evening. Ivy wants to be a nurse, very seriously, he said. She told me last week. She said she's going to always wear a braid. Riva laughed, real and unhurried. That's the important part. He smiled, carefully, the way a smile opens when it has learned. I think you're right. The kindness Riva gave was never grand. It was a lamp left on, a rabbit positioned just so, a chart amended in the middle of the night because it was right. She did not do these things to be seen. She did them because a sick child deserved them, and because a long time ago someone had done the same for her grandmother, and she never forgot what it felt like. Stratton saw her, and instead of letting that seeing stay private, he turned it into something that would keep seeing others, long after the ward went quiet and the corridor lights went soft and low.
If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.